Joining us now from North Carolina to examine the case, former federal prosecutor Kieran Shanahan, and from Washington, Georgia Gosley, who was also a federal prosecutor. Ms. Gosley, let me begin with you and ask, do you think that this is a strong case against John Edwards?
I certainly don't think that it's a strong case, and I don't think it's a strong case, Juan, for a few reasons. First of all, as a former federal prosecutor and as a lawyer, also as a woman and a wife, I understand that there seems to be an overwhelming sentiment in the heart of our nation to really punish John Edwards. That's just on the social side, but on the legal side, I'm not really sure that the prosecutor is going to be able to carry their burden, which is the burden of proof, beyond a reasonable doubt into a moral certainty. That's the highest burden of proof that we have in our justice system. So I don't think, because it seems to me that the intent of the donor, the two people who gave this large sum of money, almost $1 million, it seems to me it's their intent determines how that money, that contribution, is to be characterized.
All right, let me ask Kieran and Shanahan to come in here. Kieran, let me say that Greg Craig, who was, of course, President Obama's lawyer in the White House, is now representing John Edwards. And here's what Greg Craig says, that, you know what, John Edwards that really didn't understand the law. The law is not clear that, in fact, if you have these two big donations, and we're talking about money that came from Rachel Bunny Mellon, and it was a $725,000 donation, and from Fred Barrett another $200,000, that this money was then given to Riel Hunter. Now, is this money really to be understood as a campaign contribution? Greg Craig says it's not clear in the law. What do you say?
Well, I do agree that it's a novel question and it's not 100% clear. I do, though, think that the intent of John Edwards is what will control, and whether he intended these expenditures to benefit his campaign. Now, they're going to argue, well, they benefited Riley Hunter, and I was doing it in part to keep it from my spouse. But part of the legal test is going to be whether these expenditures would have been made in the way they were made, but for his presidential campaign. And that's why I think the case probably goes forward to the jury.
Well, and let me just pick up on this, because it's a 6-count indictment, and it includes, in addition to the charges of the campaign finance laws being broken, conspiracy and false statements being made. So, Kieran, is it possible that he would be just convicted for lying, and it looks like there might be a good case there, and for conspiring with Fred Barron to somehow keep Riel Hunter out of the political realm so people wouldn't know about it, and he could continue with his campaign and with the image of being a good family man in order to win votes?
I think that's pretty obvious that a large part of the motivation here was his campaign and his projecting himself as a family values, family first type candidate. And so I think the conspiracy count is probably pretty easy. The false statement, of course, comes in the failure to disclose these expenditures on the campaign finance reports. So my guess is that this, well, let me finish, please. I think it's very important for the defense to make the legal argument in front of the judge as opposed to the jury that the character of this almost $1 million worth of expenditures are not, as a matter of law, campaign expenses. But I think if it gets to the jury, John Edwards has a credibility problem given his inconsistent statements, and I think motive is generally pretty clear here.
Ms. Gosley, how would you defend John Edwards in this situation against the conspiracy and the lying part of the indictment?
I wanted to make a point about and ask the question, is there no, or have we gotten rid of the distinction of a person in his personal capacity as opposed to his official capacity?
Well, no one's, wait a second, Ms. Gosley, no one's arguing about his personal life. We all can make our own judgments about, you know, the wife who died of cancer and cheating on her and all the rest. I'm talking about this indictment today, and I want to hear how you would defend John Edwards against charges that he lied and that he conspired to cover up the fact that his mistress was having his child to preserve his campaign.
I would go back to the intent of the two people who gave him the money, aside from the note that apparently one of the donors had saying that it was for to aid the campaign. Apparently, this person, the donor, was giving the money or providing it to him so that he could conceal or prevent the public knowledge about his mistress. The question is whether or not those dollars were campaign contributions, and there's an argument on both sides. You can say that they were campaign contributions, or you can say the intent of the donor was not to be for him to use it officially in the body of the campaign, but rather for him to conceal.
Wait a second, Ms. Gosling, come on. Wait a minute. Here you have a note that says it's in order to cover it up to advance your political goals. That's a clear contribution. What are you talking? It's all about politics.
Sure.
No, it's not. It's not necessarily.
Look at the checks.
No, it's not necessarily. It depends on how the donors. How did they declare close to $1 million on their tax returns?
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can't.
But you acknowledge that they said it was about politics, Mr. Shanahan. We only have a few seconds left.
They said that it was about politics, but they used the word campaign. They did not say in the note that it was a campaign contribution.
I just wonder,
they didn't
you
say
said
contribution.
Campaign. All right, Mr.
So
Shanahan, let me give Mr. Shanahan the last word. We have 15 seconds to go.
Okay.
The law as it's written is pretty clear. If the expenditure is for the benefit of the campaign, it needs to be reported. And I think Bunny Mellon, when she put down the false or fictitious rationale for what the checks really were about and the way they were handled, I think all of that goes to intent. And the best hope for John Edwards is that his lawyers can convince a judge before the case ever goes to trial that these expenditures were not campaign expenses.
All right.
In failing that, this case will go to the jury.
Mr. Shanahan, Ms. Gosling, thank you.